You are going to have to start somewhere. You are not going to start with wins. Okay? You're not. You're not going to start with wins, especially on those down ballot races. You're going to start with losses that turn into close losses, that turn into surprising wins, that end up into a snowball effect that allows you to regain some momentum up and down the ballot. And it's going to take many cycles, many election cycles to do it. But to hand out a ballot in so many counties, where, like in Limestone yesterday, where I voted, there were two contested races. Two. Alrighty, welcome in. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
How am I? The day after we record this on,
right?
Yeah, we record this on Wednesday, so it's the day after. What we've been saying is the most consequential election of our lifetimes, and the wrong person wins the electoral college and the popular vote. How am I? I'm still numb. I'm still in the daze, man.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna get into all that, but before we get too deep into the sadness and scariness that is the current reality, especially for Democrats. What we need to tell you about our good friends that sponsor this, folks at Wind Creek Entertainment, Porch Creek Indians, and the great things that they do for the state and for and the resorts that they have that you can go and stay at. I would highly encourage if you're a Democrat looking to get away, that
this would be a good time.
Let me tell you this, okay? I'll tell you this. You go down there, especially if you go to Atmore, go down to the reservation. It is you'll get away. It's the way the rest of the state should be run, and it is. I'm telling you, it's a nice place. They have, people should go down and see what all they have there, and just and learn about what they've been able to do with the resources that they have. But more importantly, for you and your getaways from the realities that we're now facing, there's some three very nice resorts that they run in Atmore, Wetumpka, and Montgomery. All the Wind Creek places, you should check them out. Go down, visit the spa, get a nice relaxing massage, or 27 of them. To make sure that you can recover appropriately and relax, and eat a nice dinner at their restaurants. Well, we had fire when I was down there a few weeks back in Atmore. Let me tell you something. They got a cheesecake tower. Ooh. Man. And
a cheesecake tower.
Cheesecake tower. Yeah, just let that sink in on you. All right, and so. Yeah, and then they've got the steaks were fantastic. The salads were great. I mean, listen, when you leave out of a place talking about how good even the salads were, you've had yourself a good meal. Okay, all right, and it was great. It's a top notch facility. They've got stuff for the kids to do there as well. They've got movie theater. They've got really upgraded state of the art arcade that's there with all the big claw machines and stuff. It's really great. It's a really nice place. Check them out online. Wind Creek Entertainment. Book you a stay, and you will not regret it, especially now. So, all right. Unfortunately, we are not at Wind Creek today. We are here in the real world and doing real things. And in this real world, Donald Trump is going to be your 47th president of the United States, unless something happens, unless one of the Big Macs kick in between now and January, whatever. Listen. I thought this was going to go a different way. And not, I don't believe foolishly, thought that. I felt like, looking at the trends among women, looking at, the way things have broken down for him the previous two elections, I didn't see a real pathway for him to exceed a certain percentage of votes. And I did with women going over to Kamala Harris. I felt like that she was going to be able to pull that off. Now, I did not have on my bingo card Hispanic and Latino voters moving in mass to Donald Trump in such a way, and nor did I have really the number of young white voters going over it in the ways that they did as well. I really kind of expected younger male whites to break more evenly on those in the between the two choices, and that did not happen either. And I think that you look at reasons why, and everybody's going to pick their reasons why. But I mean, when it comes right down to it, it's the messaging. It's the messaging, and you can say, well, no, it's the reality of things. It's the reality of whatever happens. But they didn't. They sold a false reality. Now, saying that, it sounds like a criticism, but I'm not really criticizing them for running the campaign that they did. Matter of fact, it's more of a praise. They sold a false reality, and they sold it so well that people believed it. And that reality is that the economy had crushed people and that Donald Trump had built this grand economy. The nostalgia of the Trump economy. And somehow or another absolving him of all fault for the way the pandemic transpired and the crushing of the economy at the end of his presidency, which led to Joe Biden becoming president. He escaped all of that and was able, over the course of the last 4 years, to lay the inflation, the higher cost of goods, the higher cost of everything at the feet of Joe Biden, even though this was happening globally. Even though that we brought inflation down here much faster than anywhere else, even though unemployment was at record lows and has sustained record lows, even though wages grew faster than executive pay for the first time in decades in this country, even though wages outpaced inflation for most of the last 4 years, we still have this feeling that was sold over and over and over again to the American people about how much your grocery bill is, how much your gas costs, how much, all of these things cost. And this reality was not the reality under Donald Trump. And it's a very simple message that went out over and over and over again. And Democrats never countered it. They never countered it.
Yeah, Democrats never countered it. At least not effectively whatever few times they tried. And I don't think I saw some feeble attempts to counter some things, Josh, but I agree with you. For by and large, the Democratic Party did not. Instead, though, kudos to the Lincoln Project, who kept stuff out there, Mediate, the Bulwark. And that really raises a question in my mind about the Democratic Party. How is it that these other entities, who arguably don't have the same stake in this that the Democratic Party does, how is it that they do it, but the Democratic Party doesn't?
God, I've had this conversation.
It's a pitiful situation.
It is. All right. So let me just kind of lay out for people, because I don't think a lot of people really understand the framework that we deal with here. All right. I mean, I think they see it in general terms and in general senses, but they don't necessarily think of the reality of what's being done. Okay. So the Trump folks, the Trump campaign for the last 4 years, let's say, has taken on this line of attack about the economy, right? All right. The economy's awful. The economy's terrible. The economy's doing this. The economy. Listen. Look how much your grocery bill is. Look how much your gas bill is. Look what gas prices were when Trump was in office. Look what the cost of eggs were when Trump was in office versus now. Who could eat a scrambled egg now? Nobody. You couldn't afford it. I mean, the Rockefellers couldn't afford eggs at this point. And so they push that in much the same way that Democratic campaigns would push that, is what would push the opposite of that. The difference is in the Republican world or in the conservative world, you have very focused media groups, very large, very successful media groups. They're not news groups. They have admitted in court filings they're not news groups, even though they say news in their names. And those groups, those television stations that attract millions and millions of right-wing viewers, push that same message, push it and push it and push it. They don't stray from it. They don't question it. They don't attack it. They don't bring on somebody for an opposing viewpoint of that message. They push it over and over and over again. And matter of fact, if they do bring someone on, they push back against that person that has come on their airways, have dared, Pete Buttigieg has dared to come on, even though he's made him look foolish. And then for the next 5 segments, they say the same shit over and over again to reinforce how wrong Pete Buttigieg was about this and how the Democrats don't understand your reality that you're facing. In the meantime, the media structure for Democrats is wholly different, and they have never really and truly invested in a focused media that does anything like that. Okay. What we have is a group of people, and rightfully, this is going to sound like criticism of these people. I'm not criticizing them. All right. But when you have MSNBC, NBC, CNN, those folks out there, they are trying to adhere to journalistic standards of fairness and equal time and pushing a message that is fair and gives both sides fair say in these things, which has come under fire of late because the game has changed under Donald Trump and MAGA. Where it used to be there was some shame in a politician going on a news network and being caught in a lie. Now there is none. There is just a spin of the lie to say, well, he wasn't really lying. And they just continue to repeat it over and over and over again until the lie becomes a reality to the numbers of people that they're trying to convince of this message that they're pushing. And on the other side, there is no equal pushback. There's no equal messaging center that Democrats have ever established in order to get those messages out. They have relied on simple truth and the complexities that go along with that truth to be pushed out by the mainstream media and the folks that do this.
So I don't disagree with you that there hasn't been a successful attempt. There was an attempt, at least one that I'm aware of, and that was Air America. Yeah. And Air America, for whatever reason, never caught on. That's where Rachel Maddow really got her start as a host on Air America. And of course, we know that, the landscape of, syndicated radio has changed, and that's what that was basically. But what I wonder is, so we've got all of these, and this was very evident during this campaign, Josh. We've got all of these, we've got at least two, I saw at least 2 billionaires that I can recall who were openly, unequivocally siding with Kamala Harris, Oprah Winfrey, Jeffrey Katzenberg. I think we have a whole bunch of Hollywood celebrities who are multi-millionaires who also were clearly siding with her. People that, and I don't know if Jay-Z's a billionaire. I can't remember if Jay-Z's a billionaire or not. Maybe we should, so we should throw him in there. Why hasn't the Democratic Party or these billionaires try to create what you're talking about? Because I think you make a good point that that's a missing element. Even though we've got, I think on social media, we've got some of these other elements that we talked about earlier, like Mediate and the Lincoln Project and so forth. But why haven't they come together and created something like this?
That's a good question. And it's also a good question of why no one from the Democratic Party has really pushed these ideas of creating a kind of a centralized messaging center type place, that makes sure that these messages get out, that makes sure people are on board with one another, that makes sure that we have this narrative that goes out about things. And and I think a lot of times when you say narrative, people assume that you're spinning a lie. And when you say narrative, and I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about so often the Democratic Party has, like the economy, for example. They had the truth on their side in this. We did recover faster than any country in the world. It is much better. I mean, if this economy look, in 2 months, this will be the greatest economy on earth. Okay, it'll be the greatest.
Without question.
No other economy is like it. We're doing great things. People are back to work. It'll all. He won't have done shit. He will not do shit. But it'll be the greatest economy ever, because he's going to sell it like that. And that's the other thing that I think people have got in the Democratic Party have got to stop doing, and that is giving people credit. All right. They've got to stop giving people credit for being smart and understanding things. And that
when you say people, you mean the voters, right?
Voters, yeah, hell yeah, everybody.
Okay.
You've got to stop. Okay. You've got to stop assuming that people are going to look around and go, well, in Europe it is, inflation is still way up there, and we are a lot. No. You've got to tell people. You've got to break this shit down in ways that they can understand and sell it to them over and over and over and over again. And talk to them. There should have been a 1,000 cuts of showing, what they should have done? I'm telling you right now, it's off the top of my head. They should have gone to Europe or somebody somewhere and talked to, and had a comparison between a family living in one of these countries where inflation is still through the roof, and show what they pay for things, and then have an American talk, look at us over in America, thanks to Joe Biden and what he's been able to do. That's it's like they're afraid to take credit for the accomplishments. Start taking some credit, man.
Now we thought, I say we, let me say I thought that the fault was on one person in previous years, and that was Tom Perez, the former Democratic Party chair. But it seems like we've seen the same thing with Jamie Harrison, this, new party chair, but same lame, impotent kind of approach to, year-round campaigning and just the kind of commitment to messaging that you're talking about. Is there something in the culture of the Democratic Party that we're missing here? Is it more than just who the chair is? Is there something about the party itself that creates this sort of impotent lack of vision and focus and effort?
Honestly, man, I do not know the answer to that. I follow a lot of people that cover this for a living. I follow like 100 people on Twitter, X, or whatever. At this point, I never post on there anymore, but I follow along with these people, and for the most part, it's these political folks that try to break down what's going on, and I think there's a sense of there's a bubble, that these people get caught in. And you don't realize how deep in the bubble you are at times, and so I think that they believe that what they're doing is, I think I want to say what the aspiration is good. Okay, the aspiration is they want to believe that people are smart and that they should strive for intelligence, and that the messaging should be intelligent messaging that doesn't take people's intelligence for granted, that assumes that people are idiots. And while I think that that's a good thought to have, I think it's exactly the backwards thing. They've got to change this and start assuming that people are dumb. All right. And because let's be honest, we've just elected the dumbest person ever, president, twice. All right. So people are pretty stupid. All right. And so, and you've got to, it's also, after having said that, it's going to sound funny to say, you've got to take some lessons from Donald Trump. Okay. This is not a smart man doing a smart thing. This is a salesman selling shit to people. Okay. And that's all it is. Stop making it more complicated than it is. This is a salesman selling stuff to people. And he's doing it in such an emboldened, I'm awesome, my way's the best, nobody else can do it like me. You've got to have that level of confidence in what you're doing. You have popular ideas. You have the truth on your side in almost every instance in these situations. the policies and things that you're pushing out there are very, very popular with most people. When you just break them down to just the policies in general and show them to people on paper, they're like, yeah, that's what we want. Not only that, your policies are effective. Your policies have lifted the economy up and given us a really great economy when the rest of the world was still in the shitter. Okay. But instead of selling it, it's almost like you're afraid of it. It just confounds me to no end that they still do it this way, and I don't know why. I don't know why it is. Like you said with Perez and with Harrison, I don't understand why they can't take what's been done in the past and learn from it going forward. It's like they don't want to do that, and I don't know, man, and why they will not.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, why we have not to this date set up some. You're right. There are Murdoch-like people on the left. What are we doing?
Yeah.
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 Get some people out there and do some work, man.
Yeah, something, man. Something. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. It's very frustrating.
I don't either. But, listen, I just, what happened, I still don't understand, though. With all that said, I still don't understand Hispanic voters. You could not treat people worse as a candidate than Donald Trump has treated Hispanic voters. And I understand that not all Hispanic voters are the same, and there's there are different groups of people in there with different varying interests and all that. I get all that. I know that. Okay, but what the hell, man? You know what I mean? I mean, I've read all the stories.
And what happened to, we thought after all of the foolishness that was said about Puerto Rico and his refusal to really squash that, that stuff that was said about Puerto Rico by his that comedian, so you had outrage from famous Puerto Ricans like Jennifer Lopez and Bad Bunny, and we thought that was going to that was sort of like, okay, this is the beginning of the groundswell, and he's now lost all of these Puerto Rican voters. What happened? I just don't get it, and like you, I'm confounded, and my opinion, misogyny. That's what I attribute it to. I think there's just I think there is a real misogynistic, just like there is with white men, just like there is with black men. I think with Latino men, there is a misogynistic streak and a misogynistic tendency with many. I think that's true about men in general, that men in general tend to be misogynistic. And so what we saw was just a flare up of misogyny from, these Latino voters. That's what I think.
I don't doubt that was a part of it. I don't, that played a small role in it to some degree. Listening to, reading the stories, not listening to, but reading the stories today from folks that went out and spoke with, Latino voters and Hispanic voters, and what they all said was it's the economy, basically. The inflation, hit their families harder than it hit other families. They were more susceptible to the higher mortgage rates, the higher prices on food and stuff, that it hurt them worse than it did others, and that they were very concerned about that. I would think that my pushback was, well, that'd be great if we get that fixed, but unfortunately for you, under the guy you voted for, you won't be here. This man is literally talking of deporting not only illegal immigrants, but legal immigrants who are here, and legal migrant workers who are here. And so I don't know, I really don't, man. I don't know what we do with that.
But isn't that a fallacy? In fact, gas prices have dropped this year. while Biden was still obviously president and Kamala was still vice president. Gas prices weren't at some record low during Trump. Groceries haven't, admittedly, I don't have any data in front of me, but just thinking back with my own budget and everything, I don't remember things being so astronomically high under Biden and so, incredibly low under Trump. I don't remember it at all like that. It seems to me like there's always been a sort of a challenge when it comes to grocery prices, gas prices, and other things, and some of that stuff fluctuates.
It does. I mean, there were sharper increases in prices for a while. And again, though, I would go back to the messaging failures of the Democratic Party because they just allowed that to be laid at Biden's feet instead of putting it at the feet of corporations, which were price gouging in a lot of instances. They were jacking up prices, and we've seen it. There were example after example after example of this stuff. And this is another thing that I thought Kamala Harris made great headway with when she talked about this anti-price gouging stuff that was going to go, that she was going to be a part of her administration. And then all of a sudden she stopped talking about it, kind of like the joy and happiness that was part of the campaign for a couple of weeks before they started attacking Trump. I felt like they, was it astronomical? No, but it was certainly felt by a lot of people. And you're right about the gas prices. Gas prices, I mean, first of all, they were artificially low for like 6 months during Trump's term, okay? And that was only because nobody was going anywhere because it was a damn pandemic and you couldn't go anywhere.
COVID.
COVID was what killed gas prices. I mean, there was a whole gas crisis, if you recall, where there was so much product it was dropping down. It was like, I don't know, like a couple of dollars a barrel at one point. And I mean, it was just nuts how low the prices were getting. And so, again, though, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the reality is. It only matters what the reality is that people believe. And the reality that the people believe was the one that was pushed for 4 years with so little pushback from the Biden administration that was so hell-bent on being kind and accepting and gentle. You know what? He should have been calling these people garbage from the very beginning of this thing, as what he should have been doing. He should have been talking about how upsetting and I'll tell you the other thing that we should have been doing is we should have been prosecuting the criminal that led the insurrection is what we should have been doing. Or that stole the documents, or that tried to fix an election with fake electors, that tried to bribe officials in Georgia. We should have been prosecuting that person instead of Merrick Garland doing whatever in the hell Merrick Garland did over there for the last 4 years. I mean, and so that was a bit of a failure as well. But again, it all goes back to the same it'll all be okay attitude of the Democrats instead of fighting for what you believe in. And if you're not going to fight for it, you ain't going to get it.
Well, I think for sure after January the 6th, there should have been a change in, the change in understanding that you're talking about. That should have been a wake-up call for everybody that, the old playbook is out the window. It's time for a new playbook. We've got to be more aggressive. We got to be more assertive. We have to start thinking more strategically, and that clearly did not happen in a way that was effective. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to say that I think kudos should go to Kamala Harris for running a heck of a campaign with only 100 or so days to pull it off, for raising an incredible amount of money as a candidate, a historic amount of money as a candidate, and really putting together what I think by and large was a very effective campaign. Was it perfect? No. But I think that it was actually, in my mind, it was one of the better campaign efforts I've seen. Probably the best I've seen since Obama, and probably better than Obama's in terms of just strategically what she was doing and how she was doing it, the places she was putting herself in. I thought she did a tremendous job.
I did too. I thought she did. I thought she did as well. I mean, they've been campaigning for 4 years on things. She had 4 months, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt like she cleaned up as much as she could. There were a few bumps along the way, a few things that she said I wish she hadn't said. About not changing any of the Biden policies and all that kind of stuff. But and the refusal to kind of that people say is throw Biden under the bus, but not to be critical of Joe Biden. I mean, there was a way to be to be to hold your own ground. There was a way to hold her own ground and to say that she was going to be different from Joe Biden, and to not worry about where those chips fall because the goal was to win, and but at the same time, I agree with what you said, and also we should mention as well that kudos should go to the Shamari Figures folks,
Absolutely.
and what happened down there is one of the few bright spots around the country for Democrats last night, and so and congratulations
And Terry
to him.
Sewell. And Terry Sewell held on to her seat, so
Of course, yeah.
Shamari Figures got 55% of the vote. Terry Sewell got 64%. I mean, kudos to both of them, but especially to Shamari Figures as a newcomer.
Yep. Yeah. It's they did good. First time ever Alabama will have two black U.S. representatives in Congress, and that is meaningful for a lot of folks, and things are going to change for the better for a lot of people in the second congressional district because of that election. So we should, as upsetting as a lot of it was, at least we had a few things working for us, and so we'll build on that. And I'm sure we can get Shamari on here in the next couple of weeks to see what's happening in his world and how things are going. I know he's going to be busy, a busy man for the next few weeks up until Christmas break. So we'll try to get him on whenever we can. But for right now, let's slide out. We're gonna come back and try to break this thing down a little bit more with some folks on the ground. We'll be back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. David Person here, and of course you see Josh Moon there. And we are still in recovery mode from yesterday's horrific, absolutely horrific election. But I guess we'll figure it out, Josh. I guess we'll figure it out.
No, yeah.
So we have with us Sheila McNeil. She is the chair of the Madison County Democratic Party. Sheila, welcome. It's good to see you. Sheila is an entrepreneur also in her spare time when she's not party chair. And I say that because being party chair has been all-consuming over the past couple of months, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Yes, it's been busy, but the interesting thing about it is it was good busy, meaning the level of energy and momentum behind the volunteers who stepped up was incredible. But we are a little stunned today at the results. So
yeah,
we're trying to get over it and recover.
Yeah. So from what I could see, Sheila, first of all, Madison County only had a 59% voter turnout, which to me is like really disappointingly low. What's your reaction to that percentage?
Well, that is kind of interesting. I think that like 197 people cast ballots on yesterday or over the life of the election, and it's
you
just
said 197?
197,000. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
197,000 people voted, and it is kind of interesting that the turnout was as it was. We expected it to be a whole lot higher, based on the lines and the energy and the excitement around Vice President Harris. But our goal has always been to increase the level of participation. And we thought we were there, but we could always do better.
Yeah, and I think Madison County is a good county to talk about because we have often felt, based on numbers that we've seen, that Madison County is trending toward purple. It's clearly not there yet, but I'm going by memory now because I don't have this information in front of me. But as I recall, Kamala Harris got about 44%, I think, of the vote here in Madison County, which I thought was, all things considered, fairly respectable. And I know it was definitely over 40%. And so a lot of that probably represents straight ticket voting. But we also know that there seems to be a slow incremental increase in the number of Democrats in Madison County. Is that also your understanding?
Yes, the difference. So, Vice President Harris got 44.4% of the vote, and Donald Trump got 53% of the vote, 53.37% of the vote. So that was pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good indicator of the increase in Democratic votes in this election. I think it's pretty close. So I think we're getting more and more close to our goal of being blue. I think we made some strides or some progress in that area.
And before I toss it to Josh, just one other indicator I want you to react to. Guy Sotomayor, who ran for the Madison County Commission chair as a Democrat, got about 40% of the vote. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I know it was over 40%. And again, I think we can attribute that to straight ticket voting. And this is for somebody who did not advertise at all. I mean, I didn't see, or did he? Did I miss something? Was there a sign out there somewhere that I missed?
Yes, he did. I mean, he showed up for a lot of events.
Okay.
He did have a billboard.
Okay. He did. Okay.
He did. So he did a little work. I mean, he's just an unknown globally. But he was visible, in the Madison County area. So,
but the fact that an unknown candidate who did next to no advertising could get 40% plus of the vote says to me again that this county is incrementally moving towards, and that's the reason I brought it up, incrementally moving towards being at least purple anyway.
Definitely. That was very competitive number. We were excited to see that, but we do think it was basically the straight ticket voters.
So final question from me before I toss it to Josh. What else do we need to do in this county to keep things moving in that direction? Because elsewhere in the state, obviously, it looks bleak for us Democrats, and we can get into that later. But what do we need to do in Madison County to shore it up for Democrats and progressives?
Well, I think basically getting engaged and seeing the importance of your engagement in getting more Democrats on the ballot, because that's one of the concerns a lot of people who have just moved here, which, as you know, this county is growing exponentially. And there are several people who found us and came to our office and talked about and asked us why there weren't more Democrats on the ballot. I think we just got to continue to encourage people to get engaged, to see the importance of the issues and the policies that we need on board in order to be able to strengthen and protect this community. So, now what I can say is that this election, this presidential election, did boost our numbers, our participation, the volunteerism. I mean, the poll watchers, we had an army of poll watchers out there this time, which I think in the past we didn't have as many. So this did give us a level of a boost, but we just got to keep the momentum and keep people encouraged and excited about getting engaged.
I want to take a couple seconds and look at some of the kind of broader national trends that we saw that were really surprising to me, and I assume to a lot of other people, and then kind of apply them and see what you think about how they might affect, or if you're seeing any of the same trends locally. Probably the most surprising to me and to everyone with an understanding of how words and actions work, was the shift of Hispanic voters and Latino voters to Donald Trump, and to the Republican Party overall. It gave him massive gains in states where he needed it. The county, well, the most famous one, obviously, after last night was the county in Texas that had voted 97% Hispanic, voted Democrat for 128 years, and all of a sudden it went to Donald Trump. Do you see any of those same trends of losing Hispanic voters in this area to the Republican Party? And if so, what do you think is behind it, and how do you stop it?
Well, I think now we did, of course, after the Madison Square Garden incident, we did see more Hispanics come to the office and actively engage with getting ready to vote and voting for the Harris campaign. Historically, though, of course, the Hispanic or Latino population votes conservative. When I talked to a lot of the individuals that came to the office after the Madison Square Garden incident, they talked a lot about wanting to get more involved here in Madison County. So our goal is to foster that relationship and build it. There is a population here that is an active population here, but we've got to make the connection to them and build a relationship with them and get them more engaged. I think, and another thing that we may want to talk about at some point is, now that Donald Trump has been elected president, the policies that are going to come down that are going to affect this county are going to be kind of interesting. And then that's going to also impact our relationship with the Latino population.
Yeah, and also, Black voters as well. It was obviously not as strong as a shift, but it was still a shift that aided him specifically. Is it kind of along the same lines, or are we seeing was it economy / conservative type principles that led to that, or is there something appealing? Is it? Let me ask it this way: Is it that Donald Trump specifically you think is appealing to more Black and minority voters across the board, or is it something the Republican Party is doing?
It's probably more the Republican Party or the policies with African Americans. While that number is kind of interesting, it may be more policy than the person. For Hispanics, of course, they typically vote conservative, so it's probably the person for them. Yeah,
it's just amazing to me to hear. I've read a ton of stories this morning about why the shift took place and things, especially among Hispanic and Latino voters, and to hear them talk about the economy, and I'm just like, well, yeah, that's great, but you're not going to be here for that economy, It's just he's literally talking about sending you to another country,
Exactly.
I don't know.
What about misogyny, Josh and Sheila? What about that? I mean, that's one of the things that I think might be an unfortunate common denominator with Latino voters and Black voters. There's a certain percentage that is really uncomfortable with seeing a woman in charge.
That's probably true, but to me, it seemed as if Kamala Harris was the most qualified candidate we've seen in recent history. Going back, I think, to JFK. She was the most qualified. And of course, now Hillary Clinton was pretty qualified too. So it could be that may have something to do with it, with maybe the African-American male population, to see a Black woman, rise to that level. The Hispanic population, I don't know if it was that. I think it's more economy, and it's more of an economic thing.
Yeah. The other thing that I've heard a lot from people, and I heard a lot yesterday before all the results came in, was how pathetic the ballot was for Democratic voters. Here I live just in East Limestone. I live in Madison, but in East Limestone County. So I vote in Limestone County. And my ballot had the presidential race. It had the Supreme Court Chief Justice race. It had one county commission race, and I think that might have been the only contested races that we had where a Democrat was on the ballot. And of course, one of those is not from the state. So two out of all of, especially judge races, and I listen, I know it's an uphill battle. I get it, but I don't understand why is it. And I know I'm asking you, and I should probably be asking Randy Kelly and some other folks, but you're at the ground level of this, and probably will provide a good answer. And so, why is it we can't seem to field candidates to at least give people the option? Because you never know when you're going to catch lightning in a bottle. You never know when something is going to transpire that sends people to the polls in a massive number to vote out some folks or to try a different direction. And we don't seem to be heading in that direction. I mean, that was a pretty pathetic ballot that I filled out yesterday.
It was, and there was a lot of concern raised about that. The challenge is the idea that Democrats can't win in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
It's a red state, and most people think Democrats can't win. Now, Maryland Lance proved in the Madison area that they can win.
Right.
We were hoping that this election would also show that they can win. Now, what I will say is, in this election, the candidates that were on the ballot, the two candidates that were on the ballot, ran competitive races, meaning or got a decent percentage of the vote. What's her name? Violet Edwards, Commissioner Edwards. She got 89% of the vote. That's pretty high for a Democrat in this community. So I'm excited that's an indicator for me there, and I'm excited about that. But now I think with the energy that we saw in this the Harris campaign, we really were anticipating that there would be more excitement about getting candidates excited about running. That will be part of the things that we're going to work on as a party going forward. Is trying to encourage more individuals to run for office. We've got to fix that. That's been a problem for quite some time.
Yeah, it just it seems like we had Elizabeth Anderson on last week and talked to her, and she was great, and she came on with exactly the right attitude for this stage of things in this state, which is, look, I know I'm not going to win. All right, I'm facing Gary Palmer. I don't have the money. I'm in a red state. We had straight ticket voting. I know what's happening here, but I have spent the last several weeks going out to places, talking to people, spreading around our message to voters. I have engaged with a lot of people. They raised a fair amount of money, over $100,000 for a U.S. House race in which she had zero chance of winning. It was not a bad not a bad fundraising effort. And so it just seems like, are the people just not willing to go into it and say, look, I know I'm going to lose, but I'm laying groundwork?
I think more people are looking at it now, because when they saw the ballot and they saw that there weren't many Democrats, they said, we got to fix this. I'm going to get more involved going forward to help us get more Democrats on the ballot, because we can do better. Yeah. And so hopefully that will happen, and that will be part of our plan. We're going to work really hard on going forward and getting more people on the ballots. We really were leaning towards this presidential campaign to really boost that, to show. I mean, these numbers are pretty impressive when you think about the closeness of the straight ticket Republicans versus the straight ticket Democrats. 41% to 57%. That's a pretty good statistic for people to consider that's close enough for me to jump in the race and influence people to increase the level of participation for Democrats. So I think there's hope going forward. We just gotta, educate and show individuals that it is possible to be competitive in Madison County.
You know what, Josh and Sheila, I think the Alabama Democratic Party needs to create I don't know. I'm just going to say a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and really focus on year-round campaigning. No more just, okay, let's gear up for elections. We got to figure out a way to begin to shape the political landscape off year throughout the year in order for this to change. If we don't do something like that, and I think the Madison County Party, Sheila, and you're the chair, should do something similar. Create a 5-year plan. Let's figure out how we can change this culture. In the intervening years. 2026 is coming up. It'll be here before we know it. Then we'll be back to 2028 again. We gotta figure out how to change the conversation before elections come up. I mean, does that make sense?
That makes total sense. We do have, as part of the party, committees that are tasked to do that, to recruit candidates and to start grooming them and preparing them and training them to become elected officials. Just finding the people who have the courage, because it takes courage to do this. It also takes money and your ability to raise money. So it's a lot that goes into it that people have to understand.
All right.
As they prepare to seek office.
But to me, this is about more than seeking office. It's about more than raising money and seeking office. It's really about changing the mindset of the electorate. The electorate has got to see Democrats as relevant. It's got to see Democratic ideas as relevant. It may require some adjusting of Democrats on what our ideas even are. It certainly is incumbent upon us to figure out how to change our messaging, make our messaging more effective. But we've got to do it and excel in this in the off-year times. We can't just wait until it's time for an election. Even if we have candidates and if we have money, none of that is going to matter if we haven't planted the seeds, between elections.
Well, I think a part of that is policy, meaning we've got to educate people on the policies that affect this community that will encourage them and say, I need to do something about that. Or if it's for example, as we prepare for a Trump administration, the policies that he's going to implement are going to trickle down to this community. Those policies are not always going to be good for our community. So we've got to get people fired up behind, running for office to protect this community from policies that don't help or benefit this community. So we got to get in that mindset, because you got to have a reason to run. You got to have something that you're upset about that you want to change. And so we've got to recognize those things, identify those things, and get people fired up behind it, and get the courage to get get involved and get prepared to run and change things. So that's, I think, basic to people getting involved in running. You got to have a reason to run. You got to have something you want to make better. And if that's not obvious, if I'm living, the great, or a life that's comfortable, if I'm comfortable with what's going on, then I'm not gonna stretch myself out there. But if there's something key, like, women's reproductive rights, and because that's what Maryland Lands ran on and won. If there are issues like that, education is a big one here in this community. There are a lot of things we need to change about education, not only in the local community, but in the state. Now, when I think about, Project 2025 and some of the policies that are going to come out of that, police immunity, what? These are things we got to educate people about, get them fired up, and get them committed to standing up and speaking up about them.
Yeah, well, I got a good idea that the next 4 years is going to give you plenty of ammunition. So it's,
Yes.
I think that we'll have an opportunity. But Sheila, thank you for coming on and spending some time with us. And I know things did not go the way any of us wanted it to go, but hopefully from that we'll have some opportunities and things will be brighter on the backside of everything. But thank you for spending some time with us.
We're going to turn this this discouragement or disbelief into encouragement. We're going to turn it into opportunity to be able to make things better going forward in the next 4 years. So thank you for having me. It's good to be here, and we're gonna move forward with hope.
Hey, so it's all we got left at this point. All right, so let's we're gonna slide out. It's Alabama politics this week. We'll be back in a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Thanks to our folks at Wind Creek for sponsoring this bad boy, and also the folks at Southern Poverty Law Center for continuing their support as well. Thanks to Sheila McNeil for coming on, spending some time with us, and really enjoyed her insight into things on the ground. I think she was as frustrated as the rest of us, and I'll tell you what we should probably start doing is recording the conversations that we have in between the segments here. Although I'm not sure one of us would be allowed back at church any longer. But
probably me. That would be me. But I think my pastor would. I think even he would have to say that he'd give me a pass based on what happened yesterday for all of the profanity I used during the break.
Yeah, I think so. I think you and him may be using profanity together.
I don't know. Yeah, he might be praying for forgiveness today too.
But listen, it's been a frustrating, several hours, probably a frustrating few years. But on the other hand, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to go down? And we'll see. I mean, we're going to get that fluoride out of the water because
my goodness,
crazy person is going to be in charge of health. Apparently,
Robert F. Kennedy.
You know, Trump's about to sell that guy down the river. I mean, that's coming pretty soon. He's about to just sell him out somewhere.
You think so?
And we'll probably never hear from him again. It just. It is it's a remarkable failure by Democrats on many fronts, and really in this state, and this is what we're going to get to talk to, because our right wing nut this week is going to be a real surprise for you, because we're going to make it the Alabama Democratic Party, and it's not everybody, but when you look at the ballot that was handed out to so many people in this state yesterday, it was an embarrassment, an absolute embarrassment that we had. First of all, we had in the 2nd Congressional District one of the most closely watched races in America. Down there. We had enthusiasm. We had people getting out to vote. We had folks going out to vote. And that could have been and should have been used as a way to introduce to more voters Democratic candidates up and down that ballot, mainly in those judicial races, where we could have touted some of the judges and folks that around this state who do a good job, who could have been elected to higher office. Now, look, were they going to be facing an uphill battle in any sort of race that they were in? Of course they were. Of course they were going to be facing an uphill battle. But at the same time, you are going to have to start somewhere. You are not going to start with wins. Okay,
that's right.
You're not.
That's right.
You're not going to start with wins, especially on those down ballot races. You're going to start with losses that turn into close losses, that turn into surprising wins, that end up into a snowball effect that allows you to regain some momentum up and down the ballot. And it's going to take many election cycles to do it. But to hand out a ballot in so many counties, where, like in Limestone yesterday, where I voted, there were two contested races. Two contested races.
Talking about statewide.
Statewide, yes.
Yeah.
There were two contested races, and on that ballot. And even locally, there was only one. the county commission seat. And,
yeah, you're right. There was only that was Guy Sotomayor. That's right. So
that was in Madison. I'm talking about in Limestone.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Limestone, it was a county
was.
commission seat. Over here, and I'd have to go back and look at who the names of the two gentlemen running. Right, because it just slipped my mind right now. But there's no way up unless you start trying. There's no way up unless you start trying.
Right. So I'm looking at the ballot that I had yesterday. And Josh, the Madison County ballot, except for the Chief Justice position, where there was a guy named Greg Griffin running as a Democrat, there was absolutely no Democrat running for any of the statewide judicial positions. There was no Democrat who opposed Twinkle, still can't believe that's her real name, Twinkle Kavanaugh.
How is that possible?
Yeah. And then you continue even on the circuit level here in Madison County, there were no there were no Democrats at all running. So basically, if you're a Democrat who voted straight tickets, you really only voted for the president. You voted for Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. And I think that, and also you voted for Guy Sotomayor for Madison County Commission Chair. That's it, 3 positions.
Yep.
The rest of the ballot, was all Republican, and then there were a handful of libertarians. But that's it.
Yeah. The one in Limestone didn't even have the libertarians.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pathetic. It really was pathetic in a race with, a turnout in Alabama. And but again, this is the reason why we have low turnout here. Historically, even though I think turnout was going to be higher than it typically is, it's still going to be a pretty sad number when you look at it. There were multiple Florida counties yesterday that reported higher than 85% turnout. Higher than 85% turnout in those counties. I mean, some big counties as well. That's remarkable. And listen, I want to say as well. It is also, to throw around. We can make West Allen and Alabama Republicans and lawmakers in general co-right-wing nuts as well. The fact that we have but one day of voting in person. One opportunity, and the rest, people say, "Well, you can do absentee." Well, yeah, but you got to lie about it if you're going to be in town. You got to tell somebody a lie basically to get the absentee ballot, and you got to jump through some hoops to do that. And you still got to go in person basically to, or go through the mail process to do it and do a, it's a mess as well to kind of get that done. And so there's no early voting. On things. There's no curbside voting. There's nothing that makes it easier for people to cast a ballot. And we were standing in line yesterday at Bethel Church in Limestone County. And the line, it took us more than 2 hours to go through the line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was wrapped all the way. I mean, I made a video and put it on my Facebook page, and you can see it.
Wow.
I mean, the line was it snaked all the way through the parking lot and around, and that line. So it took us more than 2 hours to do that. As we were standing there, we were listening. My wife and I went and voted. We were listening to the conversations, talk to people around us or whatever. The lady had to leave because she had to take her kid to a doctor's appointment. And was she was there in line. She was like, "Does anybody know how long it takes from about this spot?" And some folks had come out and was like, "It took me about an hour and a half from there." Like, I got to be there in an hour. And she had allotted herself an hour plus to come and vote. And it wasn't enough time. and she and some other people did the same thing. We had, there were folks out there with standing there with their phones trying to do work and stuff while they were in line and taking business calls and running back and forth to the car to do different stuff. That's atrocious, man.
That's ridiculous.
It is. It is. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't have at least 1 or 2 other days. Make it a Saturday, for example. If you want to have Tuesday, the final day, that's fine. Make the Saturday before also a voting day. Let folks go out and do it on that Saturday.
I agree with that, man.
I mean, give people a couple of opportunities to do these things. It's just so dumb the way that we do this and force this on people, and it just limits the number of people who are going to cast a ballot, and that's no way to run a representative government.
Yeah, but I think that's what the party in charge wants. Honestly, that's why it exists. That's what they want. But I agree with you. There should be early voting. There should be, people should have more than one day to have an opportunity to vote. And by the way, I need to correct myself. We also had in Madison County, depending on where you live in Madison County, you were able to vote for a Madison County commissioner in addition to the commission chair. So you really had 4 Democrats, depending on which part of the county you're in. I had 4 Democrats. I voted for, and that was Violet Edwards. I also wrote in some names too, but four Democrats on my ballot.
Oh yeah, I did. I wrote in your name. I wrote in your name. Yeah, for one of the judges.
County clown, is that what it was?
No. It was like for one of the judges. Yeah, there was a couple of them on there who I know, and I just was like, I can't just let this slide as though I'm okay with this person going in there. And so I had, I wrote in your name. I wrote in Bill Britt's name. Wrote in I'm just picking out random folks that I thought would do a much better job than the people who were up for election.
I can say I got one vote.
But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got one vote. You may be judged if that person dies. I don't know how that works. So Judge Person, let's get you in here. But it just the whole experience yesterday in this state was disappointing. It was just disappointing from the fact that we don't have the options for the voting to the fact that we don't have the options of people to vote for. We've got to start. It's always been curious to me what people thought the pathway up is. Do you think that just somewhere along the way somebody's going to go, we should vote for Democrats this time? Let's all, do you think that's what's going to happen? No, you're going to have to get out and push back. And I'll tell you this too. All of the problems that we've talked about nationally among the Democratic Party and messaging and getting that message out are also problems at the state level as well.
Same thing. That's right. That's right. That's why I was saying to you and Sheila earlier in our last segment, the state party needs to create a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and it's got to involve what happens during off years. The party ought to be extremely active during off years, at least as active as it is when we're in an election cycle, if not more, in order to change the political landscape, the political culture of the state. You can't just wait until there's an election. That's a 365-day effort that has to happen sequentially, year after year after year. You can't just sit back and think it's going to, like you just said, think it's going to magically change. It's not.
No.
It's not unless we put forth some effort.
Yeah, and again, you could take some lessons from the Republicans on this. What you're talking about in those off years, what they have got to do, is they have got to get consistent messaging about things that are taking place and attacking those things that are taking place and offering an option for people on all of these different stuff. The abortion ban and showing people what's happening with real people and how it's affecting them. Gambling, and giving people an option and showing what could be done. Health care around the state, Medicaid expansion, showing people again what's happening, what could be done. School. I mean, there are, and I've been preaching this for a while to people, and maybe I'll get somebody to listen to me one of these days. But there are a number of groups of people out there, Southern Poverty Law Center, for better, worse. I would even say that the Porch Creek Indians, AEA, other unions, AFL-CIO of Alabama. There are big groups of people out there that I think would get behind, at this point, even BCA, I would say, would probably get behind a lot of these initiatives to help push more reasonable, more helpful, more business friendly, more people friendly legislation and issues, and help create and fund a mechanism, a media mechanism, a messaging mechanism that tells people of the options that they have, so we can move away from the craziness that takes place so often, and give people a different option of things, and give people different options of candidates as well on the ballot. But you know, Josh, to do that,
it's going to take effort, Josh, and also it's going to take one other thing at least, and that is the focus of the leaders of the party is going to have to change.
Yes.
Quite honestly, and I have a lot of respect for Reverend Dr. Randy Kelly and Dr. Joe Reed and the other people that lead the party. But quite frankly, these battles that they are engaging in with the National Party and some of these inter party squabbles that are going on between one set of leaders and the others, and people in various counties who are in a battle with the state party leaders and vice versa. All of that needs to stop. Yeah. There needs to be a come to Jesus meeting. There needs to be, and I'm saying come to Jesus specifically, not, I know some people may think, well, what are you bringing Jesus into it for? I don't mean literally Jesus, obviously, but there needs to be there needs to be a peace summit, if you rather that I say it that way. There's got to be a peace summit that happens. They got to squash the squabbles, and they got to get back to the main thing. And the main thing is getting Democrats in office. The main thing is getting the messaging out there that needs to get out there. All of this other stuff just takes time, money, and energy away from the main thing. It's time for that to stop. This embarrassing display of virtually no Democrats on the ballot statewide is, what are we doing? Then why is there a party? If that's the best we can do, why the heck is there a party?
Yeah. I mean, I could have found two people to run. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, there's no reason for there to be a party. If me and you could have found a couple folks to run.
Right.
It just, you're right. There's some things that are going to have to change. And until they do, you're going to continue to lose, and I think we've covered it from a national point of view and from the state level. And I mean, we're just, it's whether or not you want to win, and because it's a good point right now for you to take stock of things and look around and know that you've now lost to a buffoon who is convicted of 34 felonies and led a coup against the country. You've lost to this guy because you couldn't get out a message when you had the truth on your side in the messaging that you needed to get out. All right.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So, all right, let's go wallow for a few more days and, watch some college football.
There you go. And some NFL.
Yeah. And the NBA's back now too. So,
and the NBA. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Till next week. Y'all have fun.
Peace.